Hey, This Helps listeners, what's good? This is your old pal, Jeremiah Aha. So it seems like you're a fan of the podcast. Thanks so much, by the way. That probably means you're a fan of the guests. Question for you, do you want to see them in person? This September 29th to October 1st, this is your personal invitation to join Marlon Morgan, host of This Helps podcast, for the Wellness Together conference in the beautiful San Diego, California. You'll get a chance to hear from the voices you know and love right here from the show, like Anya Kamenetz, Dr. John B. King, Dr. Anna Malika Tubbs. You'll get to be in the same room hearing conversations with Rainn Wilson, Ben Schwartz, U.S. Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek Murthy. Have you ever heard those three people in the same sentence? It's going to be wild. I want you to be there. You're going to get free registration to the Laughing Together comedy show that happens every year. You're going to get a chance to make connections, have some great conversations, jump into live Q&As, hands-on workshops for 3 days, connect with other folks who really, really get it. So if you've been craving some inspiration, some clarity, or maybe you need a reminder that you're not in this alone, this gathering, the Wellness Together Conference, is exactly what you need. So head to wellnesstogether.org/conference and use the code THISHELPS, all one word, all lowercase, for 10% off. I'll see you there. Take care.
The one thing that we do know, looking back at our history, is what eventually happens is completely dependent on what we do. You know, it's not sitting back and waiting for other people to somehow save our democracy. It's up to us. And that can be, you know, at a large scale, you know, political organizing and elections and those kinds of things. But it can be at the level of what's happening in a second grade classroom. And so if we're acting in a way that is helping build a community that we want to be a part of, that is where we can have hope that we're going to get to not just, back to a place that we thought was better than we may be in today, but to a better place than we've ever been.
We already know what helps. Connection is the cure. It's our deep and meaningful relationships that give us hope and healing. Welcome to This Helps. I'm Marlon Morgan. Join us as we practice authentic and vulnerable conversations that inspire us to go deeper with the people in our own lives.
What up, what up, what up? Big Mar here.
I loved that so much. You could have said anything right now. If you had asked me, how do you think I'm going to start this episode, I would have needed at least like 12 guesses before I got to Big Mar here.
I don't know what that was. Really.
I loved it.
Okay.
And our listeners loved it too.
Okay. Well, I'm sure they weren't expecting it.
Mm-mm.
And I'm not small. So here we are.
Another episode, This Helps podcast. Here we are. One really exciting thing we haven't talked about too much on the podcast, but just in 2 weeks, you're going to be sitting down with Rainn Wilson.
Yeah. The guy rules. The guy helps. He rules. He's a hilarious and talented actor. And he's written a couple of books, The Bassoon King and Soul Boom, Why We're in Need of a Spiritual Revolution. And they're both really good, and I can't wait to talk to him about his own journey, what actually helps him. He's super open about his own mental health struggles and has a lot of good wisdom when it comes to getting through stuff and having good, deep relationships with other people, even in a business that's not known for that. That's right. So the guy, he will not disappoint. And if you want to ask him a question, I think I would like to be the person to display, present, if you will, your question. I want to present our listeners' questions to Rainn when we talk to him or when I talk to him next in a couple weeks.
If you do want to ask a question, you can head right to thishelpspodcast.com/ask, and all the info's there. It's super easy. You don't need to download anything. If you do submit a question, that's you telling us that we're allowed to use your video and your question, and you become best friends with Rain.
Oh, he's going to see your video and demand we track you down. And if he does, which he will, I will work with Andrea to ask you if you're open to being best friends with him after that.
That's right. That's right. Only if you want to, though.
Yeah, you have to say yes or no to that.
Marlon, I wasn't with you this week, so I need you to tell me a little bit about who your conversation was with. What's everybody going to hear?
Richard Barrera is a gosh darn saint.
He is a saint. I know that much.
My man, Richard.
Mm-hmm.
Love him. Love this guy. He's running for office, State Superintendent of Public Instruction here in California.
And he's been involved in it, in the field for pretty much ever, right?
Yeah. I think, was it 16 or 17 years he's been on the school board here in San Diego Unified.
Is that typical? How long are people usually?
No, I think he's the second longest running board member in history for that district.
Do you think we should share a little more formal intro?
Formal? You want to get formal? I think Richard deserves some formality. He was so informal, in fact, that he, if you wait till the end of the show, gives out his actual cell phone, which I'm not sure if he just thinks the show's that unpopular where no one's ever going to hear it, or he's just an actual saint and trying to do good work for the people that elected him.
There is a part of me that wants to ask our listeners to just give him a call when they hear this and let him know that they heard it and that they think he's doing a great job. But
just text him. Just say, hey, thinking of you, heard your episode, love you, bye.
That's really sweet.
Mm-hmm. You're going to love him. You're going to love him.
I hope somebody does that. At least one of our listeners does that. That would make me so happy.
Yeah.
And
Give
I
him
bet it would
some
make him
context.
happy too.
Well, I don't know. It might weird him out.
Would you be weirded out?
Definitely. But I also don't think I would have shared that.
That's a good point. So I'll stop leaving it at the end of every episode. Today on This Helps, we're joined by Richard Barrera, Policy Advisor to California State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Tony Thurmond, a longtime member of the San Diego Unified School Board. Richard has spent years working at the intersection of education, equity, and student well-being. Before stepping into statewide leadership, Richard worked as a community organizer and nonprofit leader, partnering with families and neighborhoods to expand opportunity and strengthen support systems for young people. Throughout his career, he's kept one focus at the center, making sure schools are places where every student feels supported, every family feels heard, and every educator has the resources they need to help young people thrive.
Great job. Yeah, I feel like that's a good description.
I love when I get to read an intro like that and know that it's very true.
Yeah, everything I've been able to witness, it's like legit. I think we should probably add that before this podcast, your history includes being a Finnish carpenter for interior house building, and you happen to have just a million surplus house doors.
It's my signature thing. Every
become
every
part
house.
of your
That's
personality.
Right. That's
and
right.
if you don't know what we're talking about, you've never seen anything less exciting than the door behind Andrea, producer Andrea. Please watch the video and comment on how many panels you think are below her head that you can't see on this house door.
Yeah, there's no way of knowing. We'll do a big reveal. Not yet, though.
Great. If we had a person like this in office right now in charge of California's schools, I think it would be helpful. Today, we are so happy to be in person with the one and only San Diego School Board member, candidate for State Superintendent of Public Instruction, and maybe one of the nicest people you'll ever meet, Richard Barrera. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Marlon. It's nice of you to say.
Well, we haven't had that much time to talk to each other. We met, and we've met over Zoom. We met once when I was totally nervous in giving sort of an impromptu idea of how important I think mental health is to our students, especially here in San Diego, where we both live.
Yes.
And I want to talk about how I felt pretty good about it. And I thought, okay, that was great. I said everything I wanted to say. Yeah. But then the question you had for me is, can you tell us your name? And then
I'm so sorry. That's right.
And it was the sweetest, nicest way that anyone's ever pointed out a hilarious mistake in a high pressure situation for me. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
I knew right then, I was like, and then I might get to talk to this person. And then I heard you were running for state superintendent of public instruction.
Yep.
Then I also heard you were coming to our conference to sort of on behalf of the current SSPI to speak about some of the important issues that you've been working on. Can you describe to us your position, not only on the San Diego School Board, but also your current position in the California Department of Education?
Yeah, so I'm what's called Senior Policy Advisor to Superintendent Tony Thurmond. And what that essentially means is when the superintendent has initiatives, things that he wants to accomplish that are not already being done by the department, it's my job to help support him and help to organize people around those initiatives. The California Department of Education, in a lot of ways, its purpose is if the legislature, passes a new law and it's signed by the governor, CDE is charged with implementing, that law or getting funding out to school districts. But when the superintendent, who's elected by all Californians, wants to move ideas forward that aren't already, done through legislation or acts by the governor, then it's our job to go out and organize the community and make things happen.
Well, speaking of organizing the community, I think you have some experience with that. Is that right?
That's my background, Marlon. Yeah, that's right. So I, coming out of college and grad school, I spent about a decade as a community organizer, which at the time, not a lot of people knew what that was, including my parents.
Okay. How did they feel about it? Because
they were just a little confused. Later, the sort of profession was powerfully affirmed by Barack Obama. But that took a long time. And so, but what a community organizer does is pulls people together, community by community, helps people develop a vision for how we can make our community a better place, how we can make the world a better place, and then, helps connect people to each other, connect people to resources so that you can actually make progress towards that vision. And I think it's an important role in society, the role of an organizer.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, if there were no community organizers, what would that look like?
I think it would look like a lot of frustrated people in a community, because people are always pretty clear on what's not working well, but having the opportunity to move from just feeling bad about the way things are working to having a sense that I and other people in my community, that together we can actually make positive change. That's what democracy is based on. And I think the history of our country is whenever we've seen really important change, move towards social justice, economic justice, it's been done through organizing. It's generally not done by the people at the top just decreeing that we're a more just society. It's people who are experiencing issues saying, I'm not just going to be a victim to things not working the right way. I'm going to actually take leadership and make things happen and impact our society.
Was there ever a time when you thought about how difficult that job would be and how thankless it might feel? Clearly, there's a huge opportunity and upside there.
Yes.
But there's also what seems like a lot of possible barriers. So was there a time where you second-guessed your choice?
Every day. And every day that you're in the work, because it's very difficult, because what you're trying to do as an organizer is help people create things that don't yet exist. And it's often hard, for a lot of people to really feel comfortable with ideas until they happen.
Okay.
And so you're always in that space of, people having energy to want to make change, but it hasn't happened yet. And so how do you keep going when you're encountering, obstacles and really, systems and entire culture that is often, based on notions that you want to change?
Yeah.
How do you move, towards being able to have positive impact when it is all about change? So it's the most energizing, work that I've certainly done. But it can also at times feel this is never going to happen. There's too much, that's up against this. And you generally experience that over the course of a day.
Yeah, it feels like, and I'm picturing what you're describing as trying to help people get excited about something that they haven't seen yet.
That's right.
And that, especially in what I'll call an attention economy.
Yes.
And where negativity sells better than positivity and hope.
Yes.
How has that changed the job?
The basic principles of organizing are very much challenged by, kind of the social media world that we're in, because what organizing is really about is people taking time, first getting to know each other, building those relationships. And then it's from being in a community where I feel like I'm valued, I feel like I'm understood, and I feel like I understand and value the people I'm working with. From that, set of relationships, now we can go forward and start to imagine making change. So the sort of the classic example of organizing developed during the farm workers movement.
Mm-hmm.
So Cesar Chavez, Dolores Huerta. So what you had was a situation where people were often, the most oppressed people in a society, and
somewhat voiceless.
And it would be natural for you to feel like, oh, I've got no power. Everybody else controls my life and controls what's going to happen to me. And I'm often in isolation. I might have come here from a different part of the country or a different country, left family, left relationships behind. And so now I'm here. And so what Cesar and the farm workers focused on first was doing what we call house meetings. So pulling people together in small groups in comfortable settings, going through a process of everybody in the group talking about, what motivated me to be here, what's my story, what are my experiences.
Why does this matter in my life?
Right? And then from there, getting a sense of, okay, there's a lot of, common purpose, here together. And now we can start to think about ideas and plans to achieve those ideas, but it comes from that, strong set of relationships to begin with. And a lot of what we see in the culture right now, social media, it's about these sort of quick, I'm just going to kind of rant to the world, and I'm not listening to anybody else. And I'm not in real relationship with anybody else. You know, the idea that it's called social networks, I think, is ironic. And the more that I, just sort of show my blatant disrespect for other people, the more notice I get.
It's almost like the incentive is opposite of what it used to be.
Exactly.
In some ways.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, obviously, the technology is always, evolve, and, organizers can't get stuck in this. So, we're going to ignore technology, but you also can't shortcut that process of people building real meaningful relationships with each other. Because when you try to do that, you can at best get sort of temporary, let's all show up to the rally, and you get sort of the word out over social media, and you might have thousands of people that show up to the rally, but then what are you doing?
It's almost like you're getting outrage, but no meaningful change.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Thank you for talking to us and for explaining just what an organizer does. I do think that's how I first heard about it, is I heard, Barack Obama talking about it, or people talking about him running and saying he started in Chicago, and he was organizing communities. But something that I didn't really notice then that you're getting at now is how important, it's almost like you're going to like an evolutionary place of people's most important desires and longings to be valued in community, sort of reflected in each other and heard. So that it's making me feel hopeful, but I'm also feeling a little bit, I feel like we're losing that, and I'm not sure what to do.
One of the great organizing stories actually in our country started here in San Diego. And it was a group of community organizers that had come out of the Black Power movement in the 60s who met Caesar. And Caesar had always had a vision of creating a union of domestic workers in the cities while he was building the farm workers, movement in the rural parts of California. But no experienced union organizers would take him up on it because it sounds impossible. So first of all, there's no workplace. Everybody's out in separate places. It's not, so it's not a factory or a school or a hospital.
It's literally impossible to organize because you can't have everyone
You
together.
can't have everybody, there together. And then who is the employer that you're bargaining with? Because it's not just, what some people think traditionally of a domestic worker, somebody who's doing housekeeping and, home care workers who take care of elderly, disabled people in their homes. Are you bargaining with the person that you're caring for? So
that's awkward,
right?
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
So how do you form a union when there's no workplace and nobody to bargain with? And because the local folks, Kenem Samaji and Fahadi Jeffers and Greg Akili and Raquel Beltran, because they came out of more of a community organizing experience, they thought, yeah, of course, we can do this. And it meant, again, meeting people where they're at, going down to the border as people were getting on buses, to go up to go to work, and riding with them and talking to them, and then pulling people together in house meetings. And over time, that union was built and is now the fastest growing union in California and in the country, Union of Home Care Workers. But in order to get there, the workers that formed that union actually spent about 20 years with no ability to bargain with anybody because there was not a designated employer. Eventually, what happened is the workers, got state legislation passed, which identified county governments as employers of record to bargain with. But think about, for 20 years, you're building a union with no prospect of seeing any improvements in your own wages or benefits or the things that, are what union bargaining is typically about. What it was about was meaningful relationships. So if I'm spending most of my life in isolation, and now I've got the ability to come together with other people with experiences similar to me, could be experiences very different to me, but we're now in a community and we're thinking about we can make the world a better place and we can do this together. That's incredibly motivating and energizing. And so, yeah, I'm willing to put in 20 years because I actually like being in community with other people, and I like the feeling of myself as somebody who can impact the world, who can make change.
It changes how it feels for sure. I think there's nothing more depressing and hopeless feeling than feeling totally alone
Absolutely.
or isolated.
Absolutely.
So just by bringing meaning into your life through other people that
Yes.
are having similar experiences,
Yes.
that is how sort of these big changes that seem insurmountable
Yes.
are made.
Yes.
I mean, it makes sense because as human beings, I think about like Maslow's hierarchy or, some of our needs that if we get them met, then we can sort of get to that level of personal growth, sometimes called self-actualization. But you really can't get there. It's like trying to get there without other people and without relationships is like trying to get ready in the morning with no mirror.
Yes.
Like but worse.
Yes.
Yeah. And so you don't have anyone to help you sand the rough edges or become the person you want to be.
That's right.
Because if no one cares or knows you, then you can never do that. So it almost feels like until this point, when you talk about technology and getting together and the way that big changes happen, it almost feels like we were going forward. And now there's an incentive or an intermediary when it comes to, being online with each other and maybe not feeling all of the, getting rewarded,
Yes.
like you said,
Yes.
for being mean or having those sharp edges.
Yeah.
And it's certainly affecting, it might be, I'm like having this realization right now as you're talking. Is that what is happening in politics?
I think it is. I think, so right now we feel more divided, as a country than we have in a long time. We get frustrated because it feels like nobody's listening to each other. You can't even have it's almost like you don't have a common language, to talk to each other. People, sort of create their own sets of facts and understanding of the world. It's interesting. There was a historian several years ago who wrote about the history of communication technology in this country. So the printing press, and then radio, and then television, and now social media. And what has happened in our country is when a new communications technology is, kind of sprung on everyone, it's followed by a period of deep political polarization.
Okay.
So, the communication technology, first of all, feels overwhelming to a lot of people. It feels like there's now information, conversations that I don't understand, I've never been a part of. And often that technology, the owners of that technology, benefit from people getting mad at each other.
Right. Right. Otherwise, they would just be like a happy consumer is not really a consumer. Right?
There you go. So if
Yeah.
you're selling newspapers, at the, so if you if the first newspapers in this country were tools of political parties
Yeah.
meant to, divide us.
But they're not anymore, right?
Not at all. Not at all. So, but what has also happened, and this is where I think we can feel, some hope, is we adjust as a country. And, generations that grow up with this technology tend to be less overwhelmed, and over time have the ability to take some control back of the technology and not feel controlled by it. But that is all about education, and that's all about, what's happening in our schools. So, you think about something as simple, our district and, a lot of school systems around the country are saying no cell phones, during the school day. And that's not going to fix everything, but boy, it's giving young people a break from constantly, feeling like you're, dependent on scrolling and, looking at your phone.
Searching and being sold.
All day.
Yeah.
Constantly. And so just getting a little bit of a break from that. And what that does is it creates space. And this is, Marlon, the work that you're doing that's so important in helping school districts learn how to create space in a classroom where first it's about, am I a part of a community? As a student, do I feel connected to other students? Do I feel connected to my teacher and other, adults at school? Do I feel understood? Do I feel valued? All of those things that we talked about, with the farm workers doing house meetings, that same set of principles is critical in a classroom.
And as a student or a young person or even a digital native, I might not even know those things are possible.
That's right.
And so I think best case scenario, when you talk about things that certainly have been politicized over time, like social emotional learning, some of those less academic, more personal growth type things that we're trying to get into classrooms, so that I think this is a great point to make to anyone who does think it's a political tool, that it sounds like it's more along the lines of a personal growth and being able to feel heard, communicate, feel known, know others. It's like this whole other alternative that we're trying to add back in. I picture, when we all changed our definition of friend with Facebook.
Right.
And that's why I think, follower, I think is a little more, I wish we could have started with that.
Right.
A little
more accurate.
But now, like, as long as you say good friend or like a friend that I think it still is hopeful. And it sounds like what you're saying is we still have, this has happened before.
Yeah. Yes.
And it's not all doom and gloom.
Yes.
And our students, especially with some leadership and, giving them a little bit more room to breathe and to create that community. Yeah. You're thinking that we can actually turn this around and students will hopefully get used to it.
Yeah.
I picture someone being dropped down into a casino, like that's how I feel about my phone. There's I don't have a lot of apps on there because it's like, it's bottomless and I can just do that all the time.
Yes.
I can't.
Yes.
I can't even start.
Yes.
But our students, you're saying, are going to be more inoculated to something like that or more used to it. And then we'll give them room. And it does sound hopeful. Like maybe we could see a change back to each other.
Yes, I think so. The kind of basic thing that we hear a lot from students is, I actually make friends now at recess.
Yeah, what are we hearing? Yeah, tell us. We had Dr. Malhotra on from LA Unified, and she talked about how it's going there.
Yes.
She said something similar, but I want to know, how's it going here in San Diego?
Well, our policy that, we just adopted as a board and that's now in place for this school year is really based on, common practice that has been happening in schools for a number of years, not uniformly. The practices have been a little bit different, so we wanted to, create consistency. But, I had a conversation about a year ago with the principal, Liz Duval, at Wilson Middle School in City Heights. And she had established this policy a year prior, your phone stay in your backpack all day. And she told the story of one student who was a popular kid who was intentionally, violating the policy at the beginning of the year, clearly taking his phone out of his backpack, kind of in ways that, teachers and the principal could see.
Okay. Testing it out a little bit.
Testing it out. Yeah, that's right. And so what Liz did is she approached this student and she said, look, you're a leader. The other kids pay attention to you. No question about it. But what I could use help with is I'm trying to establish this policy. Here's why I think it's important, for our school, but I need help from you. And, from that point on, he put his cell phone in his backpack. He had another way of, demonstrating his leadership. And then, the policy really took hold. And, again, what Liz talked about is not just in the classroom, students having more ability to focus, to participate, to pay attention, to what their teacher was trying to do, but with each other, really spending time at lunch. Hey, I'm going to go up to a kid who I might never talk to, who might be sitting, on their own. And I'm going to sit down and say, hey, do you want to have lunch together? And
you might not ever even see them if you don't look up from your phone.
If you don't look up from your phone, right. Yeah. And so it was funny. We had a group of students from Logan Memorial and Logan Heights that were themselves, developing the idea of a cell phone free zone at their school. And they made posters, and their kind of message was, we want to recreate the recess vibe. So these were like middle and high school students, right?
How do they even know what that is?
What that is, right? But they, for this group, it's like they're thinking back
I want to recreate the recess vibe
school.
Now.
We all want that recess vibe, yeah. But for them, what it meant was like being out there, getting to know other kids, making friends.
Mm-hmm. Being human with other humans.
Being human with other humans, right? And what we know and what we've been hearing from classroom teachers for years and years, before I think there was even a kind of a better understanding of social emotional learning and wellness, but hearing from classroom teachers just saying, I can't get to reading and math and, academic content until I create a community in my classroom. I
love how you are, and it's subtle.
Yeah.
But it's very helpful and direct. But everything you've talked about so far is the basis of it is community organizing.
That's it. In my frame.
Yeah.
I get it, because that's community organizing. That's right. I think teachers are community organizers, and they're doing it every day.
But so was the principal, Liz.
Absolutely.
She was a community organizer. She was enlisting people. She was reflecting that student's value back to him, making him feel a part of what was happening, not against it.
That's right.
I'm loving this.
Yes.
I'm loving it. I think people are going to really like hearing this.
Yeah.
And it's not just like, hey, have hope because you have to, or for hope's sake. It's saying, actually, we really do love being with each other, and all of the big changes, especially the good ones, because I think there's bad ones too that have organized as communities, and there's been some unhelpful things throughout the past. But you're saying that, you still have faith that people are going to turn back towards each other, realize that there actually is something better on life's menu than what's on their phone.
Yes.
And it's this.
Yes. There's the organizing director with the farm workers movement, Marshall Gans, who then went on to organize.
He just put a book out.
He just put a book out,
I just got it. I haven't read it yet.
It's fantastic. And he was here in San Diego a few weeks ago and speaking to a group of people. And somebody asked him, well, given what you've seen in your lifetime, where are we going as a country? Are we going to save democracy? Are we going to lose democracy? Mm-hmm. And Marshall's response was, for anybody to be either optimistic or pessimistic in this moment is kind of arrogant, because none of us actually know what's going to happen. But the one thing that we do know, looking back at our history, is what eventually happens is completely dependent on what we do. It's not sitting back and waiting for other people to somehow save our democracy. It's up to us. And that can be, at a large scale, political organizing and elections and those kinds of things. But, Marlon, what we're talking about now, it can be at the level of what's happening in a second grade classroom every day and what's happening in a meeting of parents, at a school. I mean, that's where our democracy is always born and reborn. And so if we're acting in a way that is helping build a community that we want to be a part of, that is where we can have hope that we're going to get to not just, back to a place that we thought was better than we may be in today, but to a better place than we've ever been.
So maybe a couple steps back, but then, 3 steps forward.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So we might be in a bit of a dip right now. But don't get overwhelmed and totally depressed.
Yeah.
Because we've been here before.
We've been here
sounds
before.
Like what Marshall's saying.
That's exactly what Marshall is saying. And in thinking about what's possible, our younger generations are generally, and this, tends to be true generation after generation, but they tend to be better at understanding each other than their parents are. So,
Yes.
I'll give you an example. So I grew up in El Cajon, and I went to high school in the early 80s.
Right, and this is right here in San Diego. You're sort of a San Diego native.
I'm a San Diego native, and El Cajon in the East County has always been a kind of a tinderbox because El Cajon, a lot of people moved there in the first place because it had been a place that you could afford to buy a home. So kind of a working class, community of white people, black people, Latinos. But then El Cajon is also the place that refugee resettlement agencies often locate families when they first come to the United States. So when I was in high school, there was a big influx of families from Vietnam and a big influx of families from the Middle East. And this was right around the Iranian hostage crisis. And so we had kids. It was the beginning of the Chaldean community in El Cajon, which is so ironic because these are Christian Iraqi families. But the kids who came here right at that time, they were getting picked on and bullied because it was, oh, you're Iranian and, you're anti-American. So it was just this constant, sense of changes happening. Different people from different parts of the world are here. And our parents' generation wasn't great about that. It was kind of reinforcing, here's the reasons why you want to be wary of, kids who are different from you.
It's sort of like I'm thinking of how everyone freaked out in the 80s about kidnapping, but there really weren't that many.
There weren't that many, yeah.
It's just kind of like what you see. And then, I mean, there wasn't nearly as many outlets as there are now for the media. So like one thing, you see like one person, doing something in Iran or something, and then you're like, whoa, they're coming over here.
And so everything is a threat and, and it's, for kids, what we had to make a decision, which was really kind of a, basic decision is, are we going to be in this constant, tension and not liking each other and getting in fights and all that stuff every day? Or are we going to get to know each other? And as kids, we got to know each other. And often, at a level well beyond the understanding of adults.
Sure. And you probably are watching the news a lot less as kids.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So I think, again, it's, I think young people, I think young people today have a much better understanding of, gender differences than, prior generations. I think young people who grow up in community with each other have a much, it's not just tolerance, it's these are the people that I care about because they're in my community. And And so, these sort of stereotypes that might be coming from previous generations, that's not my reality. And so when young people actually have that space to create community with each other, I think then they actually make our society better than it's been in the past. Young people are obviously very vulnerable to and targeted by social media companies and technology companies that are trying to dick them and isolate them and make them, be anxious and afraid and all those kinds of things. Mm-hmm. And that's where, as an education system, we need to intervene and create that space and help young people come together in community. But when we do that, young people are going to create a better community than what we grew up in.
Well, they know more.
Yeah,
and they've been through it.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I'm picturing, there was this big push and still is when it comes to mental health in schools for a mindful classroom. Mm-hmm. And I really liked that people were doing it. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
But it was always interesting to me, and a lot of that came out of the Bay Area.
Uh-huh.
But also, we know what comes out of the Bay Area is most companies that are involved in marketing to our kids and social media.
Yeah.
And so I would think this is so weird because, mindfulness is literally creating space between reacting and, the thoughts you have and reacting to those. And so you're creating some space, even if it's 5 or 10 minutes in the morning or, different ways people do it. And we were trying to do that in classrooms. But up until the last couple of years, you would have a mindful classroom. You'd have someone come in and try to create space, maybe 30 minutes or so, explain what mindfulness is. And then you would stop doing that and then take out your phones immediately.
Oh, right.
So it was this really interesting split between this is, the mindfulness capital in schools, sort of in the new ideas and being open to all these things. But it's also part of the homogenization of our youth.
Yes.
So, but now it sounds like what you're saying is we're getting smarter about that. And really, if you look at AI, the information that's available to everyone in some, at least for now, in a bit of a more democratized way, schools, they've always done more than one thing, more than educate, more than provide information. But the community piece and the room for community piece, literally, if I had to create something from what you're saying, if we tried to create something to make things better, it would be a room that a bunch of young people could go to with maybe 1 or 2 adults to help them out and learn how to relate to each other and learn with each other and have these experiences.
And exactly, Marlon. And as you are helping school systems like ours learn, that doesn't need to be a separate room that's only a part of the school day. That can be your classroom,
right?
And that can be
the
every
safe
day.
Space,
Yes,
the space that is. You're giving kids back their voice, their power.
Yeah.
And because, like you said, so much of our power, just not only as students, but as human beings, is in our ability. The way we've evolved to this point is literally in our ability to work together.
That's right.
And to know each other and to meet each other's needs.
Yeah.
This is way more hopeful than I thought it was going to be.
Well, that's good.
What else do you want people to know? And what kind of changes or things that you want to reinforce? What would you like to see happen in California with the education system?
I think it starts with the way that we currently measure whether our schools are working or not is so narrow. And, and still, again, we've been talking about this for 20 years, but still is largely based on once a year standardized testing. And it just misses the point. And it misses really the value of what school can be. So if you think about elementary school students, how are we creating opportunities for young students to take leadership, to investigate, the issues and ideas that they're really interested in, and then express themselves and be able to present, those ideas back, which is what we value really as a society. That's the kind of person, that we want in our workplaces, that we want, in our leading our communities. So how do we create those opportunities for young people at the elementary school level?
Can you describe again what the kind of person is that we want in those communities? Like, let's paint a picture of.
Absolutely. So if we again have a little bit of humility as adults, we have to recognize that 10 years from now, the world is going to be beyond our imagination. And certainly 20 years from now and 30. And that's, we've grown up in a world that changes so much all the time. So we don't need to ingrain in young people what we know. We need to produce young people that have the confidence in their ability to keep learning, that understand how to keep learning and believe that they're good at learning. Mm-hmm. So that's the kind of, young person that, if we're, again, just thinking about sort of knowledge and, building academic skills, we want people who are good at learning and believe that they're good at learning. Now, if we want that same young person to then be a contributor to make their community better, we want young people who are really good at building relationships with each other, at respecting each other, at listening to each other. The kind of person who, when you come in contact with that person, you feel better about yourself, having been in relationship
like
with
an
that
illuminator versus diminisher. I've
Absolutely.
heard,
right. Yeah. Or, sometimes it gets reduced to like a giver rather than a taker, so we want young people who are, going to be really good at, learning and mastering content. But we also want young people who aren't going to, make use of those skills just for their own benefit. We want young people who are going to help other people around them, believe in themselves. So community builders. And I think we want young people who are articulate and are good, at communicating ideas. Certainly we want young people who have the ability to not be overwhelmed by all of the information that's coming at them, who feel, I can take this and understand it and synthesize it and
some
make
digital literacy to maybe even navigate that environment.
Navigate the environment. That's right. So, and I think when we think about, the kind of people that are valuable in our society today, it's people with those skills. It's, look, things are going to be changing, so we want people who can quickly understand what's happening and turn that into and synthesize that into something that helps us think, okay, here's our path forward, but then also brings us all along. That's I think what our education system should be focused on producing. Leaders, absolutely. And again, in every, you could be somebody who's leading a city, or you could be somebody who's leading a family, or somebody who's, leading a workplace. But at every level, that's what we're trying to produce. And you can't capture that in standardized testing.
That's true. I haven't thought about all of that. And I think in another way I have, because I thought, if we can create an environment for students to really thrive, or now a lot of people are talking about flourishing, or, these other aspects to life that are beyond making money and getting a good grade. Yeah. But that stuff, is obviously important, but how can we treat and be aware of our entire humanity? I want to talk about that for a second, because you are and have been a leader, and and I think would make a great leader for our California Department of Education. So I'm hoping to be just following you and watching you succeed with that, because there is currently a shortage of leaders, at least that are highly visible, that are the things you said. They're community building. They're humble. And, I think we're getting to the point where I have to talk about the actual elephant in the room, leading our country.
Yes.
He isn't any of those things.
Right.
So what? So is that because? I mean, here being in California, does it make it a little bit easier to lead more of a servant and community building leadership? And do you think that can be effective moving forward?
I do. And I think in our politics, when we take out of our politics the space for people to listen to each other and respect each other and value each other, and when we take out of our politics the notion that what I do as an individual matters, you take that out, and it is so easy to fill that vacuum with what a schoolyard bully does every day, which is, if I pick on some other kids, I'm going to somehow be more popular.
So you blow out other candles, make your light shine brighter.
Make your light shine brighter, right? And I mean, it's, and actually nobody ever feels good about that, including the bully. But certainly, obviously, the kids getting bullied don't feel good about it, but the other kids don't feel good about it. They don't like it, but it's okay. We're not going to mess with the bully because we don't want to be the next one, to be picked on. Now, I think a lot of us, as kids, learn very quickly that is not the right way to respond to a bully.
Sure. It can be effective, as we've seen.
Yes.
It can maybe get you elected.
That's right.
But it's not, and someone I was talking to yesterday, her name is Larissa May. She's a really intelligent, younger person. She said, you cannot change the world with fear.
Right.
And so that's what I'm picking up from what you're saying.
You can't change the world in a better way.
Right.
Unfortunately,
good.
Right? We've seen plenty of examples of fear changing in the world for the worse.
That's a good point.
But, so first of all, this idea that we're just going to inundate people with, kind of another form of bullying. We're going to pick on you because you don't come from this country, or you speak a different language, or, we don't even understand your, sexual identity, and it feels weird, and so we're going to pick on you for it. You do all of that, and that happens when there's a vacuum where we take, our basic relationships out of the picture of politics.
So there's no longer a community. It's sort of every person for themselves.
Yep.
And then it's sort of like Lord of the Flies.
That's what it starts to come down to. And then what I think is almost more troubling is this idea that I alone can fix it. Because what that is emphasizing is none of us have really any value. We've got to wait, for the bully in charge to decide what they are going to do, and then we all just need to react to that. And unfortunately, we know that, in societies, countries, that have experienced dictatorship for a long time, that's kind of the playbook. The playbook is really about making people feel like they don't have any value, anything to contribute. Certainly, they don't have any power. It's all about, whoever's in charge, and you wait. And react to what that person is doing. And okay, so that's kind of what got us here. That's, the situation we're in. Like, kids in a playground, I don't think most people like being in that situation. I don't think it feels right, to us. It certainly doesn't feel right to us to see a parent going to pick their student up from school, who's then picked up by people wearing masks and arrested and taken away and separated from their kids. People can have whatever views they have about, immigration, but I don't think that feels right, to people.
Well, I think it feels mean.
Yes.
And like if you're doing that, then you're trying to feel even more powerful.
Yes. Yeah. Right. You're doing that because you're trying to scare people. You're trying to, and again, like a bully, it's, that's how you somehow think you're going to, you're going to stand up. That's where your power comes from. But I don't think it feels right. And so we're in this situation, right now, but, our country has always been able to get past, these types of situations. And, the reality is the experience that maybe a lot of us are having right now, which is we're not feeling like we've got a lot of power. We're worrying and feeling anxious about what somebody is going to do to us next, what kind of decision somebody's going to make next. We know that that's a common historical experience for a lot of people in this country. That's not something new. But what we also know is whether it's, Black people in the civil rights movement or women in the, women's movement, workers in the labor movement, there's always a group of people, and it might start small, who say that's not how we're going to live. But in order to make that change, we're going to go back to the basics. We're going to get people together, in small communities to begin with, and we're going to feel a sense of what's possible from being in community with each other. And then we're going to go out and we're going to do big things, and we're going to change society. And that's where, positive change in the history of our country has always come from. So I believe that will happen. But again, to Marshall's point, it's not enough to say, I believe it will happen. It's what am I going to do,
Right.
to help make that happen? And that's the question all of us have to ask ourselves.
Well, I'm going to then, I was feeling really hopeful. And with everything you were saying, and I was thinking about the 20 years that led up to the successful unionizing that you mentioned earlier.
Yes.
I was thinking about all that. But then I kind of got sad for a second because I thought about how easy it is now to distract and control and confuse people through whether it's social media or just regular media or anything really.
Yeah.
AI.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
where does that fit? You still, what I'm trying to do, Richard, is make you into my therapist so that when I think about this conversation later,
Yeah.
you tell me why I can still be hopeful because those things are happening. Because you mentioned like a dictatorship, or you didn't say fascism. I'm saying that. But in those situations, no, I don't think anyone's had a tool as powerful as the ones we're seeing that are being created right now.
Again, where I sort of push us on that is you go back through history and nobody ever experienced a tool as powerful as a newspaper. And nobody ever experienced a tool as powerful as radio and then television. And so it's the next, tool, but it's not that people haven't, been confronted with this kind of overwhelming, sense of, oh my God, it's too much. It's coming at me.
Yeah, that's helping. Thank you.
I
forgot about that.
But Marlon, here's what, to be your therapist, here's what I know is true about you, that when you are most hopeful, it's when you are doing your work, in our case, in partnership with San Diego Unified, and you're helping us as a school system learn how to create community in the classroom, how to understand if it's happening and, where we can intervene and make it better. And your agency that comes from that work, I'm sure when you're in that space, you're feeling really good about things and really hopeful.
That's the only way I continue to get up and read news or, listen to it, is because I feel like, okay, I can do this for half hour, an hour, depending on what I have that morning, or not at all maybe sometimes. But then I get to go and do something where I think my short time on earth is actually helping. And it's helping exactly what I just read about. It's helping exactly the helping solve the problem that I'm just reading about. It's helping solve the issues that my 3.5-year-old and my 12-year-old are going to be solving, soon. And so thank you for saying that. I'm a little bit more hopeful than I let on. And it's because I do see people like you. I see people that are doing things every day.
That's right.
To change it. And sometimes it is darkest before the dawn. Sometimes we do need to have a reminder every once in a while of, okay, what kind of leadership do I really want? That's right. Do I want to feel alienated, sad, or am I so hurt by the things that have been happening that I feel like I just want to see other people get hurt? Is that really what I want?
Right.
Like all of that, it seems like it's going to get old pretty fast.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned earlier, dictatorships don't often last.
Yeah. No, that's right. And so it's for all of us, it's especially at those moments that we're feeling powerless and hopeless. And this, just from, kind of a mental health standpoint, we got to get out of that, get outside, decide what is it that I can do right now to actually, contribute in some way. What friend can I call, or what friend can I make? How can I get into a community with somebody? How can we do some things that, feel like this is a good thing for the world, And when we do that, suddenly we're a lot mentally healthier.
Yeah. And optimistic and hopeful.
Right. That's right.
And we need that.
Yeah.
We need hope.
Yeah.
We also need leaders to say things like you're saying.
Yeah.
And trust that other people are going to get together around those ideas and see the vision that they may not currently see, like you talked about at the very beginning.
Yes.
You mentioned leadership and training our students how to essentially organize and be in community.
Yeah.
But, a couple weeks ago, the governor here in California, Gavin Newsom, put out an executive order, and it discussed a lot of the issues we're seeing mental health-wise with boys and men.
Yes.
And I was very hopeful when I, read it and saw it, and I had the opportunity to speak about it a few times in different outlets, but it to me felt like almost a direct response to. It was like compassionate and humble, and saying, hey, this is not to diminish the, from forever till now and struggle and inequality that we see with females.
That's right. Yeah.
It's not to do that. Yeah. It's to strengthen, maybe even at the heart of it, the ability that our boys and men have to create relationships.
Yes.
To feel meaning and purpose.
Yes.
Because a lot of it, there were a lot of stats, when it comes to boys and men feeling suicidal, or even not having jobs and being unemployed out of college, those types of things. But it did come down to that overall feeling of, I don't feel like I'm making an impact. I don't feel valuable in this new sort of society that's maybe different in some ways. Yeah. So, were you able to take a look at that executive order?
Yeah, what that immediately did is it made me feel good about an action that we took at the school board a couple of months ago. One of our student board members, Joseph Cruz, he put together a resolution, and he asked me to co-author it with him, and I was, happy to do that. And it was all about, affirming our commitment as a school district, to supporting the social and emotional health of boys. And, and it's interesting that Joseph, was so motivated by this. Joseph, again, in a lot of ways, he's been an ROTC leader. In many ways you would say, okay, there's a young man who is confident and has it together, and it's in some cases in some very traditional definitions of what it means to be a successful young man. But Joseph really was feeling like, these definitions don't quite hit it. And it's often these external definitions of what it means to be a successful man that create these pressures that boys are growing up with and feeling like that doesn't resonate with me, and I'm not living up to it.
Sure.
And so now I feel terrible about myself.
Yeah. And it wouldn't really it's not really as valuable as it once was.
As it once was, yeah. It's like
we're not out here, fighting people for every meal. And I picture the Mitt Romney-Barack Obama debate when it was about military spending, and Barack said, Mitt, we're not fighting with horses and bayonets anymore. And just kind of that's what that reminds me.
Obama, by the way.
Thanks. Yeah, it was okay. I got to get a Sasha Malia, just kind of some stuff in there. But I think that definition is changing.
Yeah.
The utility of it.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, in some ways, that was born out of, well, you got to be tough because things are really hard to do, and someone's got to fight these other people, and so you got to do it, man up, all that stuff that we can kind of see as BS in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But it was pretty pragmatic.
Yes, right.
Throughout history.
Right.
I even think for our listeners, if you're not going to read the 5-page executive order, or at least, I think I can fully endorse this, but at least watch Bill Burr's Hulu special where he says, he's now just recently in his 50s started having emotions and talking about them. And up until now, the only emotions he's been able to really share are angry and fine. And I was like, dude,
right.
Yes. Okay. We need to give our boys more than angry and fine, and we need to kind of come together and create that community that redefines how can we be helpful, how can we be valuable, seen and valued for what we are able to do. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, if we think about sort of what we're defining as a leader at multiple levels, a leader is a community builder.
Yes.
A community builder has to be in genuine relationships with other people, which means you've got to be honest about what's happening with you.
Yeah, I'm laughing because of how I think it's so refreshing to hear a person. I mean, you've been on the school board here in the second largest school district for 16 years?
This is my 17th year.
And you have done, I would say by all accounts, politically, you've won by some pretty good margins. And so I want people to see you for who you are,
yes,
but also you for someone who is in a leadership position, but you're bringing with you humility, you're bringing with you integrity, you're bringing with you overall kindness that is obvious, I think, to anyone listening or watching. So it can give me, especially as a male, hope that we are going to see a resurgence of that kind of leadership, that people will vote for someone who says, hey, the boys and men, they're not okay.
Right.
They need some help.
Yeah.
So, and again, not diminishing anything on the other side of that with what's been happening for, like I said, forever. With the discrimination and the treatment that females have received throughout the eternity. But really we do need to focus on how we can redefine leadership.
Yes.
And value someone who maybe does have we got at this earlier, some emotional granularity and can identify their thoughts and emotions and actually be more than angry or fine.
Yes.
And talk about it,
Right.
We got to make it okay to talk about.
Yeah.
For everyone.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. And it's, that's again where the, positive part of this comes from. If we do better as a, community by young men, we're going to do everybody's going to be better as a result of that. And if we do better by young women, everybody's going to be better as a result of that. And if we do better by, trans kids, everybody's going to be better as a result of that. So, this sort of, what tends to happen and get reinforced by politicians or, marketers, if that person's better off than I somehow lose out, is always actually just the opposite. If we can just focus for a while on, one group of people, and we see that group of people start to have more success, we're going to be better off as a society. That'll bring all of us up, and then there's more capacity to focus on me.
There's strength in vulnerability.
Yes.
Real strength,
yes.
actually,
is
in vulnerability. And I think even now, and this is, I don't want you to agree or disagree with this because I'm not running for office. But even now, if our current president were to get on TV and say something kind, something compassionate, something that acknowledged that he too had emotions and knew what they were, I think that's not something he's willing to do.
Yeah.
But I do think it would go so far. I think it would immediately change the tone of politics. And so we know, listener to the show, Donald J. Trump, listener to the show, if you could please come on,
say something nice about
to
somebody
Truth
else.
Social, which I'm told exists. I've never really seen it, and say, hey, I'm an emotional human being with a full range of thoughts, feelings, and emotions, and I always have been. That would actually go a long way for us to know that there's a human being leading the country, and maybe you could get some more support. So that's a little advice for him on the side.
That's great.
But Richard, I really, not only have I learned a lot, but I've been very inspired by you and who you are as the leader, like you have been from the start. Someone who does want to take people with you, not push them to a place that maybe they feel like they have to go because of the power you have. That doesn't sound like something you've ever done. And I want to thank you for that.
Well, Marlon, thank you. Appreciate that. And also very much, appreciate you, getting to know you, your reputation, with the folks who've been working closely with you in the district is so strong. I was talking to folks in the district, today, and it's you build confidence in leaders in our school system that the things that we know are the right things to do are also accomplishable, and that's a big deal. And so I just thank you. I thank you for that partnership and for your leadership, Marlon.
It's absolutely, I'm humbled to be able to do this work. Thanks for working with us and being a partner with that. And together, we will continue to make the hard and scary choice to be vulnerable, to be close to each other, and start with community before we try to take other people with us.
Thank you, Marlon.
Welcome back to Marlon Helps.
Yep.
You're here to help?
I'm here. I'm here
to support your help.
I'm tired of answering Andrea's questions. I gotta hear directly from the listener. Andrea's always just asking too many thoughtful, engaging, insightful questions that are frankly a little bit hard to answer. So if you could throw me a couple softballs. Yeah. Can you tell them how to do it?
Yeah, they can go to thishelpspodcast.com/ask, and there's a section there to ask Marlon a question. Don't have to download anything. Takes you as long as you want your question to be, and if you submit it, we'll answer it here on the podcast. And you'll be famous.
The easier, the better.
It's 3 clicks, I think.
Mm-hmm. I just meant the question.
Oh. So a real 3-click question.
Yeah, let me get warmed up with some real basics. If you don't know the answer, you probably shouldn't ask it. I don't know. No, you can ask a hard one. We'll try. It is Marlon helps, or at least tries. So
that's right.
You might get the latter.
but you'll do your best.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question this week about community organizing,
Hit
which
me.
our friend Richard is so passionate about. It sounds big and official, that phrase, community organizing. What are some small, everyday ways that listeners can bring people together, even if, like, they don't really think of themselves as a leader, you know?
I think have people over, invite them into your house. There's no better way, in my opinion, than giving people food. I mean, if you want to have me over, that's the way to do it.
That's so nice. I love how, I'm saying simple. It's not, that simple, but I love how, practical and manageable, maybe that seems.
Yeah, but I think we just got to really be careful, because all the messages we hear, or most of the messages we hear, are ads that are paid to reach us and get our attention. And rarely are they going to say, actually, you don't need to buy anything. Just hang out.
Just hang out.
So
yeah,
I think with our culture, when we talked to Bridget Schulte, and she wrote Overworked, great book, she talked about just the expectations to always do more, always be more. And we kind of use that as almost a crutch or a defense to life's problems and the things we can't control. But you just got to stop and ask yourself if that's the way you want to keep yourself safe from disappointments and other people. Is it really worth it? So you want to be a community organizer, you got to build a community. And honestly, it's hard. It's hard. You're tired. You got work. You might have kids. You have other people to take care of. And it often does not feel like a priority. But if you don't do it, you start to feel it. And then we just reach for something easier, like some other kind of high dopamine, low effort activity that is going to make us feel more sad and alone. So community really is the antidote, and it's the answer. And as far as making big changes, political or otherwise, you can't really do that unless you have a community, which is part of the issue we see in our politics today, because people are so divided and believe that their identity lies in the content that they watch and listen to. It's hard to get through. And that's actually really good for a politician who's going to say, well, I'll fix it all, but because you can't. But the reason you can't is because you're trying to do it alone. You actually could if you had a community and it was organized.
Mm-hmm. I think it happens so fast that we, sometimes without even realizing, I'll be like, oh, it has been so long since I've seen whoever, right? And I didn't even realize it had been that long. And so I'm thinking of an episode that's coming out in a few weeks with our friends who wrote The Social Biome, and trying to be really intentional about that and about reaching out more and getting people together and how good that is for the community and for the individual. So,
yeah, they talk about getting your social calories, and
right.
It sounds so great. And even when I'm saying it right now, it sounds so great. But I always think things are going to be worse than they are. I think maybe because I feel anxious about it.
Mm-hmm.
So in my life, my wife will often set up like
Activities.
times to hang out.
Play dates.
Yeah, finger painting for me and the kids. But I think she'll invite people over, and it's if she didn't, I think I would just like keep choosing these
Yep.
low effort, high dopamine things until just no one ever heard from me. I don't know, but I'm thankful to her. She seems to have maybe more of the motivation or see the bigger picture with that kind of stuff. Like I love people, and I almost always have a great time when I can bring myself to like just show up.
That's what I was just going to say. I would bail on every plan I've ever made if feeling bad for doing so weren't part of it. But I can think of so few times where I followed through and wished I'd stayed home.
No, and the other thing is like, if it really sucks as bad as you think, you could just leave.
Yeah, I think we forget that part of so many things like this. Not even just like hanging out, but you can just stop doing the thing if it's unpleasant for the most part.
Well, also like seeing someone you haven't seen in a while, like, oh, maybe it'll be awkward, or what are we going to talk about, or they always do this, or we always do, we just talk about them, or whatever it is. Like, it's probably better than you think, and you will both get more out of it than not doing it.
I think that's right.
It's a good reminder to think about it, and there's some friends that I have that I'm just like, I'd hang out with them just about any time because you can just be yourself. Especially when you move to a new place or a new community and you're trying to make friends, and it's rough because it's like you think I'm going to give that what little I have extra energy and time and emotions, and then what if these people kind of suck, or what if secretly I suck but no one's telling me?
Yeah,
like that's always a possibility.
I thought you were going to say it's always a worry, but no, it's always a possibility.
Well, I'm not too worried about it because it doesn't happen very often. I'm not doing enough hanging out to but that's actually another good thing about hanging out, especially with people that like you and like you enough to tell you when you're doing things that suck.
Totally.
Because that's good for everyone.
It's such a good point.
My family benefits a lot when I hang out with my friends I've had for 25 years because they do not pull any punches. No. And they're just like, what? What did you say? You did what? Or you just can't do any of those weird, like impulsive, insecure BS things that you might do with someone that you're meeting for the first time.
Think about how good that feels, even when it's somebody giving you a hard time, but it's when it's because they know you so well.
Yeah, and they love you.
It's the best, yeah.
And there's safety there. Like it's not it's incredible.
Yeah. That should be the homework this week. Keep giving people homework that I say I'm going to do. And it should be to reach out to one of those friends from your what's the word?
You wouldn't normally?
Yeah, but somebody who knows you that maybe you haven't talked to in a little while.
I think this. I'm going to see that and I'm going to raise it. Not just reach out, call them.
On the phone?
Yeah. Yeah, just like don't text ahead of time. Just call them. And then see what happens.
If you're one of my friends listening to this podcast and you were thinking I was the person that you're going to cold call, I was going to say don't do it. You can do it if you want because I'm not going to answer. You got to text me first.
Nah, we got to work through this. That's BS. What, one more barrier? What are you so afraid of with that call?
I mean, do you know what it really is? Is that because we don't do that, people only call when there is a problem. So if you call me, I'm going to assume there's a problem.
Yeah, well, same. But the good thing is, with this case, you will be able to prove them wrong and actually make their day, because they're going to think something horrible has happened, and you're going to call them and be like, you really probably should start with, everything's okay.
Everything's fine.
Actually, no, that makes me think it's not too.
That makes me think
I would, I would start with like,
how about what up, what up, what up?
what up, what up,
Big
what
M.
up? Big Mar in the hose. How about that? They'll think you're calling from the 90s. What's the first thing you should say to someone if you call them and it's not a problem? Like, okay, like call me, fake call me. Okay, it's ringing. Yeah, hello?
Yellow. That's probably what I would say. And then that sounds like everything's fine.
You're right. And is it ironic? Is it like you're an ironically 65-year-old man in New York that would answer like that?
I don't know. I think that's just how I answer the phone. Oh, no.
Okay. No,
Oh, no.
That's not you.
We
That's
gotta-
me. That's my own bias coming out
I don't know.
against, well, not even against, but just like I'm really pigeonholing New Yorkers here.
I think I answer the phone YELLO. Yellow.
Yeah, you're right, though. Just starting with a jokey hello is going to indicate the fastest way to say, I'm like, this is a real call, like this is a social call. What if you say YOLO? And then,
YOLO.
like, okay, no, all right, now I'm going to call you.
Yellow.
YOLO?
Are you going to say it with a question mark at the end? Like you're a little afraid of it?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Oh my God. Marlon, is everything okay?
YOLO. That's why I called you, because you only live once. I heard it from disgraced pop star Drake that everything is life. You only live once, and so I got to call you
Because I'm
and make the
dying? Is
I
that-
got to make the no, nobody's dying.
Okay. Okay. Whew.
Nobody's dying that I know of right now.
Okay. I was really worried because you called me on the phone.
I know, but okay. Listen, when I said YOLO, I meant the county in California.
Yolo County. Okay.
Yeah. So it was a little bit more boring than that. And so that way, it's like you don't want to make waves.
It's just some information.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just a place.
I think
It's
that's great.
it's geography, really.
Did that help?
I don't know. I think it actually did help me to get that out there because I don't feel so alone in it. I mean, that's kind of like work we would do off mic. It's like I would call you and say,
Well, hopefully you would text me first.
well,
And then,
I might not, especially now.
oh boy.
Yeah.
This is why you never admit anything to anyone ever, listeners.
No, this is good. This is great. I'm gonna call you. I'm gonna leave some real fumbly, long, wordless voicemails, and we'll just see where it goes.
Exposure therapy.
Yeah.
As a reminder, you can head to thishelpspodcast.com/ask to ask Marlon your questions for Marlon Helps, so I can stop asking questions that inevitably lead to me having to get phone calls or sit in silence or do some other uncomfortable thing. You can also, please and thank you, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts.
If you like the show, I think.
If you like
I
the
love how
show.
when the podcasts I listen to, just the one, I meant podcasts that I hear, is like they're often, if you like the show, please leave us a review. And I think that gets around the whole, please leave us, that bossy, leave us a 5-star review.
5-star. I
Yeah.
think that's right. That's a
But-
nice way to do it.
If you don't have it in you to do that 5-star, don't waste your time. Don't worry about it.
Do your thing.
Yeah.
We're
Four's gonna make me sad.
4's still pretty good.
I'm telling you, it's I only do this for the stars.
Beautiful. You can also find us over on YouTube if you're not watching the video versions yet. I spend a lot of time on them. So please go check them out, especially this episode in that fancy studio.
Oh, it's so good. So good. The thing about that studio that is probably the most incredible is the lack of interior house doors.
I'll never get rid of it.
All right.
I'm never going to change it now. Now I'm attached to
There
it.
might have been one in there. I just didn't see it because it wasn't painted bright white. But I mean, as far as I can remember, I did not see an interior door in sight. Thanks for joining us today. We hope it helped. Stay connected with us at thishelpspodcast.com.